Hello, and welcome to another edition of Delta Media Group's Tech Tuesday. Today, we are going to go over adding customers to DeltaNet 5, and I'm also going to fit in importing customers to DeltaNet 5. Importing customers, it's not as bad as it sounds. So we'll go through it, and you'll be able to see for yourself. So let's jump into the DeltaNet and go from there. All right, so there are two ways to go about adding customers. So we'll go over that one first, just manually adding them in one at a time. Keep in mind too that because the DeltaNet 5 is mobile responsive, if you were out of the office, away from your computer in an open house, something like that, you can bring this site up on your mobile phone and you can add customers that way. So if you met someone in an open house and wanted to add them in real quick, it's real easy for you to do so. So the first place you can add them in is when you first log into the DeltaNet. You're on your welcome page or your agent home layout page. And if you scroll down, there is a button right here that says Add New Customer. So all you would do is click that and follow through the steps. Or if you go down to Customers and Customer Center, you have an Add Customer button here too. Both of those buttons will do the same thing. So we'll go ahead and click on this one. And here is our step one of the Add Customer wizard. So first off, first name, last name, and email address are the only fields that are required here. But and actually, those are the only fields that are required to enter a customer at all. So the rest of these are entirely optional, but the more information you enter, the better. So we'll go ahead and enter a customer. I guess I'm just going to call it test customer. I was trying to think of something clever, but it's not working out for me this morning. Good enough. And phone number. It's a real number, by the way. There we go. So you enter through the rest of this information. I'll go ahead and enter a address just for fun. And there you go. Now also, if you have groups set up in the system, you can add them to a group here. You can apply labels or a label to this customer. These labels are just things that are pre-built in the system and just another method of organization. You can actually sort your full customer list by these labels. So these are just a few pre-built ones we put in here for you. You can use those if you'd like. And then fill in the rest of these fields and click Save. When you click Save, the customer is created. So at that point, if all you want to do is enter a customer, you're done. So you can just click over here on Done, and that will finish out the rest of the steps. There'll be nothing else for you to do. But we also run through the rest of this wizard so that you can see the other options that you can add in if you want to. So this would just be all about company information. So if you want to enter company information for this particular customer, you can. Once you fill all this out, if you want to add it, you would click on Add, and that would add it to this customer's profile, basically. If you want to move on to the next one, we can just click Skip. Now from here you can add notes, which are just notes that are accessible to you as the agent or to an admin. You can log in anytime and bring up this customer's profile page in the DeltaNet, and you'll be able to see all the notes you've left. It also timestamps these notes, so if you wanted to add a note now, you could do that. And then down the road when you talk to the customer again, you could add another note, and that note will be date and time stamped so that you can have just a series of notes in there and see exactly when you left them. Now next down you can add in buying information. Buying information will create a saved search for this customer. So the interface here to create this saved search is not as robust as if the customer were to go through the public website and save a search that way, but it's an easy way for you to quickly set up a search for this customer, if nothing else, so that you can keep track of the kind of just real basic criteria they're interested in. So if I wanted, I could go ahead and put in a market name and it'll bring up the autocompleter here. And I'll say residential, between 100,000 and 200,000. And just add a habit. I pick 3 beds and 2 baths for everything. And then the last option here is to send new listing emails. So what this will do, as long as you leave this box checked, anytime the system finds new listings that match this criteria, it'll automatically send this customer an email letting them know about those listings. And then next down in selling information, this will sign them up for a market watch report. So what this will do is, for whatever market you choose here, the system will send out as long as you have the send market watch emails box checked, and email to the customer that has just some basic market information about whatever you chose here. So I'll go ahead and say Ohio. Stick with what you know, So there we go. So what this will do is once a month by default, it'll send an email out to this customer with a market watch email that'll have 3 graphs on it: average days on market, average number of properties on market, and average price of those properties, along with some recent sold listings if the data is in there for it, and also some suggested listings or sample listings from the area. So it'll send those out once a month. And if we click add, it adds those to the account. Or again, if I had clicked skip, it would skip that step and move on to this one. Now here, we have selling information. This will work in a similar fashion. So you can go ahead and fill this out, and this would be, if they're potentially a seller, they would be able to enter this in, and that would give them, or give you an idea of the kind of thing they're interested in selling, comparative information. This may actually not be live yet. So you're seeing behind the curtain now. As far as I know, this hasn't been set live yet, but this is a feature we'll be adding here down the road. So again, you fill it in and click add if you want to add it, or you can skip it. And now here we have the welcome message. Now, anytime you add a customer to the DeltaNet, the system will create a portfolio account for them automatically, and all this is an email that you can customize if you want, that'll go out to the customer and tell them what their username and password, which by default is just their email address. But it'll send an email out to the customer letting them know that you created a portfolio account for them and what their login credentials are to go ahead and log into it. That portfolio account is what allows a customer to go to your web page, sign in, and save searches themselves or save properties themselves. So if you want to send it, you just click send. If you don't, you click skip, or you can click done, and that would skip through the rest of the steps, just like on all the other steps here. So we'll go ahead and skip this for now. And lastly, you can create a to-do for the customer. And what this will do is add an event to your calendar by default 2 weeks from the current date. So if we click here, you can see that 2 weeks out is what it defaulted to, but we can pick whatever we want there. So we say just 1 week. And then this is the action, so it'll add this to the calendar on that date. That'll remind us to follow up or do a follow-up call, or you can customize this to whatever you want. But it's just a reminder that'll show up on your calendar in the DeltaNet only, or if you've synced that calendar with your Apple Calendar or Google Calendar or whatever calendar system you use, it'll show up on that calendar as well. So yet again, just creates a reminder. If we click add, it'll add it, or skip, just skips it. And since that was the last step, you see we're all done, and there's our customer. Now, as I said, after the first step, if I had just clicked on done after I clicked save in the very first step, that would add the customer too. So it would have immediately closed out and taken me to this page, and you'd be able to see the customer right here in this hot new customers section. But there they are. So that is all there is to it to manually adding a customer. Now, to import a customer, again, we're still under the Customer Center, so Customers and Customer Center. We'll go down to Import Export here in the Actions box. We're going to import contacts. We need to choose a file. I know I have a file in here for this. There we go. Now for the rest of these, if you are importing a file that is specifically from one of these things, you can select it and the system will try to map the fields for you. But in most cases, you're just exporting from another system, your Google Contacts or something like that, and you'll need to map the fields in manually. So no matter where you exported the file from or converted it from, you can pretty much leave all these on the basic options and just click Upload File. And the next step it takes you to allows you to manually map out the fields. So the way this works, everything on the left is a heading from the file you're importing, and everything on the right is a field that pertains to a customer in the DeltaNet. So all you do is match them up. So we want everything in the email column to be mapped to email in the DeltaNet. We want to map first name to first name, last name to last name. Now keep in mind, in this case, these are matching up exactly, but if you're importing a file, a CSV from a third-party system, these probably aren't going to be exact matches like this. But you just have to know which field pertains to what you want to map it to in the DeltaNet. Forgot which one I was on. City, state, zip, and you get the idea here. So anything you don't have a field for in your CSV, you leave on ignore, but anything you do, you'll want to match up. So once you have these all mapped out, you click Map CSV Fields, and it'll give you a list here of all the entries in your CSV, and the only thing you want to make sure of here is that the data is basically lining up. So under email, we have a bunch of email addresses, so we know that one mapped out right. First name, we have first names, last name, we have last names, etc. So as long as those are all matched up and everything looks good, you check all valid imports, and at that point you can just click Import Selected Contacts. Now, from here, you can import them just as they are, or if you have any groups set up in the system already and you want to organize your customers into groups and specifically organize this import into its own group, you can do that by selecting a group here. If you don't have any groups set up, or if you want to import this set to a group that you don't already have set up, you can select New Group and then give the group a name. So now when I import this, it'll import them to the All Customers group because everything goes into the All Customers group, but it'll also import them into this Group A so that you know that this import will be organized that way. So we'll say Import Selected, and there you go. So 14 customers were added because 14 were valid. And you saw 2 were red in there. That was because they had invalid email addresses. So it won't import any with invalid email addresses, but it will import if they don't have any email address. And you'll be able to see in the list which ones match that criteria based on the color code that was at the top of that page. Now if we go back to our Customer Center, so there we are. You see we created Group A. I put those 14 customers in Group A. There are 15 customers in my All Customers group because it's the 14 that were in the import plus the 1 that we created manually. And now down here you can see there's all of our customers. So there you go. That's all there is to it. So the last thing I will add in here is if we go back to import and export, you can delete whole imports. So if for some reason that import didn't work out the way you wanted it to, you could click Delete Import. You would select it in this list and click Delete Selected Import, and that would get rid of it. Or you can also export your contacts with this import-export function. So import-export, export contacts, takes us to this page where you can now export all your contacts at once, or you can select a group and export just the contacts in one group. So we would just select our group and then update our list, and then there's just the members of that group. We click on Export, and that would download a CSV to your computer that would contain all those contacts. So there you are. That's all there is to it. So, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me this week. If you have any questions or concerns, go ahead and comment on the video on YouTube or on Facebook. If you have any suggestions for new videos, you can leave us a comment. You can send an email into support@deltagroup.com, or you can give us a call. So thanks a lot for joining me.